The Toronto Raptors are seemingly setting out with a goal of making the playoffs next season. But what's the rotation going to look like for the team that hopefully gets them to that position? Let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. This is Amateur Sports. It's a YouTube channel that is completely dedicated to providing you with Toronto Raptors content in videos and in live streams. So smash that like button if you enjoy along the way. Subscribe for more content just like it. But I've had a few questions regarding the Raptors and what the rotation should be looking like for next season. So let's go through the entire thing. And judging by the 2 years so far with Darko Rajakovic as a head coach, start of the season, they kind of want to feel out a little bit more of the pieces within the team before making really those decisions to cut down rotation. So it's not that big of a difference, but they've started the season lately with 10 players in rotation. They've kind of whittled it down just one less spot down to 9 as they progress through the season, as they get more trust for the guys that they actually want to play. And we'll go off with the starters, of course, to start things, but the bench is where things get a little bit more interesting and maybe where more work needs to be done. So make sure you stick around until that section of the video. But starters, it kind of writes itself. At point guard, it's obviously going to be Immanuel Quickley. There's not going to be any conversations about, oh, do you slide Quickley down? Do you move Jamal Shed into the starting point guard position? This is not going to happen. Immanuel Quickley is the point guard. Finished the season really well for the Raptors. Obviously had the injury issues, but I think keep your faith in this player. Allow that contract to age. I think it will age gracefully with the cap going up. And with Immanuel Quickley hopefully having a healthy start to the season, he'll get back to the levels that Raptors fans were expecting. So absolutely the starting point guard there. Now, positionally, other than point guard and center, I don't care a ton about the positions because there's guys who can play different roles in this group here. But basically on the wings, there's no real out and out shooting guard type of player. But if we have to label someone as a shooting guard, it would be RJ Barrett. Now there's going to be conversations about the fit with this starting five in just a second here and its inclusion with RJ Barrett. And rumors are already starting to pop up about the Raptors potentially shopping RJ Barrett. I've spoken about it a lot on this channel. I don't love the fit. I like RJ Barrett as a player. There's a lot of talent there, but there isn't a positional need for a player like him that much. But it looks like it'll be difficult to trade him and get the value that you'd want to get out of a player of his ability. Therefore, I expect the Raptors to start the season with RJ Barrett in the starting five. In the forward spots, you can put them in either position. I mean, maybe you had more so Scottie Barnes, the power forward, so we'll say the small forward is going to be Brandon Ingram. That is also very, very obvious. He is going to be one of the starting forwards for the Raptors. They shelled out, not a lot, honestly, for a player of his ability, but they gave, a good sum in the trade in order to get Brandon Ingram to the team, and the expectation is he'll be able to play like an all-star and be the leading driver of this offensive unit for the Raptors this season. And just this style of player, guy who can go and get buckets. This guy is going to create his own shot in mid-range, get us out of some tough situations offensively where maybe the team goes a little bit cold. He can find that bucket for you. It's a type of player that I've really wanted on the Raptors for a long time. They finally have it. I'm excited to see how he gels next to the power forward in the starting five here, which is going to be Scottie Barnes. Obviously, Scottie Barnes is going to start for the Raptors as well. Down year a little bit offensively, but a big year on defense for him, and I think that's going to carry over very, very well into next season. A little bit of a sour taste for Raptors fans to know the Raptors did everything to get Scottie Barnes to 65 games played. We didn't expect any All-NBA votes, which he didn't get, but not a single All-Defense vote either. Kind of stings, again, knowing they really, really tried to force out the 65 games for him, but hopefully maybe some accolade discussion for him next season. But regardless, the accolades don't concern what actually happens on the court. Scottie Barnes is fantastic on defense. And hopefully playing next to another high-caliber player on offense like Brandon Ingram helps unlock the form that he showed to make an all-star team in 2023. The center, of course, is going to be Jakob Poeltl. As I said, the starting five is simple. It writes itself. Jakob Poeltl, the only real NBA caliber center on the roster, true center on the roster, is Jakob Poeltl. And he's a very good one. There's a lot of teams in the NBA who would really love to have a center like Jakob Poeltl. Fantastic defender, fantastic at finishing at the rim, fantastic rebounder, fantastic in the pick and roll, good passer out of the high post. His screening ability, his passing ability at the high post, allow him to space the floor for his teammates even though he can't shoot. But, alongside Poeltl not being able to shoot, There is a lack of floor spacing with this unit, which is why I question the fit overall of this group together. This is just by far the 5 most talented players in the roster. That's going to be your starting 5 for the team. You're going to have to work out the kinks there. Emmanuel Quigley's going to have to shoot a ton of threes. We're going to have to see maybe an upgrade in volume of Brandon Ingram threes. Maybe Scottie Barnes can continue to take threes, but maybe more catch and shoot threes. RJ Barrett was pretty good off catch and shoot threes last season. It was pretty efficient, like above 35% threes for Barrett. So if everyone's kind of chipping in, which we kind of say every year, and it doesn't really work, maybe the spacing can work to a certain degree. But even like people who are excited about Barrett and still want to keep him here, it's not that I dislike Barrett. It's just the fit is a little bit clunky with this team. And I think that this is going to be the starting 5, regardless of the draft and regardless of what happens the offseason. I don't think we're going to trade Barrett just yet. But I think we'll learn very quickly that, okay, when we see this group together, we'll notice the drastic change that does need to happen. But maybe we just need that visual confirmation in order to make it so. And like I said, the draft still needs to happen. So this bench unit is likely going to change. But as it stands, this is what the rotation would be looking like, which should highlight where some of the areas of concern are for this team. Because I don't think whoever the Raptors draft, I don't think that player is going to be in the starting 5 and challenging one of the 5 starters that I've mentioned. But off the bench, first 2 names off the bench for me going to have to be Grady Dick. The shooting is going to be very, very beneficial to that unit. Like we could see still the units where Scottie Barnes, the first player, subbed out. Therefore, he gets some more time with the second unit, kind of leading that second unit. But inserting Grady Dick and just that additional shooting into that lineup would be very, very interesting. The issue does stem now from defense because there is a bit of a lack of defense in the starting 5 as well beyond Pirtle and Barnes. But hopefully there is work put in on that on the floor for a player like Grady Dick, who did struggle a lot on defense last season. But I think that the spacing is pivotal to be the first name off the bench. But Jamal Shed should be close to follow. Having that more pure point guard in rather than Emmanuel Quigley, having Jamal Shed's defensive ability, passing ability, where there does need to be some work is can Jamal Shed continue to show a little bit more from 3? That is going to be vital for his development and vital to how effective he can be in the NBA. But I think he's done enough to warrant that sort of role. Then we get a little bit more hazy. I think you've got to have Ochai Agbaji coming off the bench because of how good he is defensively and because of how good he was shooting from 3 last season. Was one of the best corner 3-point shooters in the NBA last season. One of our better defenders certainly on the roster. But I think you've got to have that in, which makes it very difficult to find the right fit for Ja'Kobe Walter, who probably also is coming off the bench as one of your top 9. But then now what you're dealing with is, okay, there's no out-and-out shooting guard in the starting 5, but off the bench. Grady Dick, I mean, shooting guard, small forward, but I would consider his play type, his style to be that of a shooting guard. I would say the same for Ochai Agbaji, who can play down as a 3, and even in extreme cases can play down as a 4. But like in this bench unit, if you're playing Grady Dick, if you're playing Ja'Kobe Walter, if you're playing Ochai Agbaji, yeah, Agbaji can play as the 4, but that's also sacrificing a lot of size for the teams. That's where some difficulties could arise there, because I think Ja'Kobe Walter is good enough to continue to get minutes and should continue to get minutes, but the fit is just a little bit complicated. If there is a 10th guy in rotation, just because you need size, just because you need somebody to fill that role as a backup center sometimes, Jonathan Mobo kind of has to do it, which I know leaves out guys like Jamison Battle, who you kind of want to get in, and I think he's definitely going to be challenging for one of those spots, maybe ahead of Ja'Kobe Walter as well. There'll be interesting little internal battles for the Raptors' depth and the Raptors' bench and who gets those spots, but injuries happen, and you need bigger rosters, and you need guys to be available to play these games. But as it stands, the 5 guys who warrant the most minutes off the bench right now are probably Grady Dick, Jamal Shed, Ochai Agbaji, Ja'Kobe Walter, and Jonathan Mobo. And then there is whoever the Raptors draft, whatever position that may be. If it's a center like Kevin Malawach, it's easy. Mobo comes out of that 10, and Kevin Malawach goes back in. Then we see how the season goes to start the year, and maybe one of those players comes out of rotation. But what we've kind of learned looking at this group, there's no real, absolute game changer coming in off the bench unless Grady Dick does progress defensively, because that'll just keep him on the floor longer. We know he's talented offensively. We saw how good he was to start the most recent season. So if that continues to progress defensively, he'll be very, very effective. But The Raptors have a lot of good players for the bench, but it's not very top heavy. So I'm wondering if that's where they see a potential for an RJ Barrett move, just to fill out the roster a little bit better. But again, I don't quite think that move is going to come this offseason for RJ Barrett. But as much as there's talent here and enough talent to be a playoff team, overall with this rotation I've laid out pre-draft, it's still just, it'll be interesting to see how a coach like Darko Rajakovic can make it work. It's just not quite seamless fits. It feels a little bit incomplete from a roster construction standpoint. So there's going to have to be some creative ways and creative lineups that really maximizes the output of this team. You know, certain things like if Grady Dick comes in for Scottie Barnes, now we have a little bit more shooting, but then, you know, are you missing a bit of defense? Does Jamal Shed come in for Barnes, and then now it's Jamal Shed sliding Emmanuel quickly down to the 2? That has a little bit more balance, but now does it still lack a bit of that spacing that you would need for the team? Whole lot of questions here. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned from this is what the Raptors need to accomplish this offseason, and it's going to be difficult with the finances at their disposal and just the area they are in. They just don't attract free agents, but it has been, well, I don't, maybe have they ever done it? Trying to think back, but the Raptors really need to land a successful free agent. Like, they need to sign a free agent who is going to come into the team and make a difference. It's not a guy who's going to be starting, getting maybe the heaviest minutes, but like somebody who can come off the bench and do a job that is going to help the team. I can't even recall a successful free agent signing by the Raptors. So if you have one, like, please let me know in the comments down below. And I'm not talking about like Yuta Watanabe, who, he had some good games, but was nowhere near consistent enough to fit into the category of a successful free agent signing. So that's going to be a huge difference maker, nailing the draft pick, and please find a free agent who can actually help this team win games. And then, like, when we're playing key games, hopefully, and not tanking, but hopefully we're playing key games in March, is that guy going to be trusted to get significant minutes in that game? Not closing minutes, not starting minutes, but significant minutes. Are we going to be able to find that guy? We'll see.